Hi, everybody. Hope your new year is going well. At the beginning here from all of us at Active Self-Protection. And welcome to John's Briefs, here again with attorney Tim Forshee. And a criminal defense attorney, a specialist in firearms, in defensive use of guns.
Can't use the word specialist because that's a state bar buzzword. So I'm not certified as a specialist in firearms law. There's no such specialization. So, yeah.
I didn't realize that was a special buzzword. I'm not an attorney. There you go.
It's a good thing.
Someone who has a great deal of knowledge in those areas. How about that? Highly trained. Is that a special buzzword?
No, I think that's okay. There are people that argue with that, but I don't think it's a special buzzword.
Okay, so not a specialist in a particular area by state standards. And we recently saw in the news, and it's been on the big channel, the gunfight out of Los Angeles of the guy who had, what was pretty clearly a pretty good gunfight.
Yeah.
And then the sheriff of his county suspended his CCW. And what the heck, man? Let's talk with the attorney about it.
Right.
Firearms Legal Protection is who I trust to help me after a use of force incident. If you're a Firearms Legal Protection member, I will also be on your team as a consulting expert, and you can attend our monthly Active Self-Protection training seminars for free. Check out all they offer to their members at the link below. So first of all, California is an evolving mess.
It sure is.
Of CCW.
And it's evolving, I think, in the right direction, but it's a mess nonetheless.
Well, I mean, obviously under Bruin and with the challenges of May issue, they've eliminated the May issue. California is shall issue CCW.
Yeah, that's the first thing when I hear this is like, how in the hell did a regular guy get a CCW permit in LA County? Oh yeah, it's post-Bruin.
It's post-Bruin.
So that's happening now. And that's great. That's a good thing.
And I have a lot more contacts in San Diego County, and so the sheriff makes it kind of as difficult as possible and as long as possible, and it takes you like a year and a half to get your CCW permit, which is a crime.
Yeah.
But eventually he got it. So he is legally carrying a firearm, legally concealed carrying, has a dude with a gun try to break into his home. It's all on video.
Yeah, this was clearly a smash and grab type of home invasion burglary, and I believe the gentleman's name is, he's given his name to media. I believe it's Vince Ricci, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Yeah. And I believe he had a wife and a 5-year-old child in the house.
In the house.
If they had gained entry, I think we can all imagine the horrifying scenarios that could have played out there. So.
And then, okay, so he uses his firearm to successfully defend himself. As far as I know on all the news stories, I mean, that was basically turning money into smoke and noise. And
yeah, you could tell
nobody got hit by nothing.
His technique was bad. I mean, he was really yanking on the trigger and spraying and praying. And when you see the angle from the other camera, you can see one bullet strike the wall. Thank God there was a wall that didn't go into the neighbor's house. I'm assuming that was a block wall and a 9mm probably didn't go through all the way. But yeah, this could have gone worse for him, certainly. He could have sprayed and prayed into his neighbor's house. But,
so then homie runs off. Okay, fine.
And from my understanding, nobody was hit that we know of.
Nobody's
correct?
hit.
Okay.
And so then the sheriff of his county that issued his CCW suspended it.
Yeah.
And I go, dude, what the heck? Now, the only statement I've seen from the sheriff's office but LA actually has a sheriff's department, not a sheriff's office, which is kind of weird, which is very odd. Yeah. Usually it's a sheriff's office because that's an elected office.
That's a buzzword for them.
It's a buzzword for them. Yeah. But LA is the LA County Sheriff's Department. I don't know. Anyways, they said, well, there's a process for reapplication, and he can apply for reapplication, and that can be a very rapid process at times.
Which, of course, doesn't answer the question, why was it suspended in the first place? Why was it revoked? I think, and this is all speculation. Obviously, I don't have any inside baseball on this other than what the media has reported.
And he's given a couple of interviews.
Yes.
But
my read is that a law that was passed in the wake of these Bruin reforms says that your CCW can be revoked, and I think there's like 3 different things. And one of them is if you're not assisting with the police investigation. I'm paraphrasing, but it's something along those lines that you have to assist the police in the investigation. And I think Mr. Ricci, in one of his interviews, said that he thought maybe he got his permit yanked because he was being a jerk to the cops. So reading between the lines, I think what happened there was he probably lost his temper and behaved poorly with the investigating police officers. Maybe he cursed or yelled or shouted or whatever, and some cop decided, hey, you know what? If you're going to be a jerk, then here's what we're going to do. And I think the moral of the story is that even when it's really hard, and we've all met that cop, right? It can be very, very hard, but you've got to swallow your bile, and you got to be excessively polite and respectful, even when it's difficult to do that. And I think maybe Mr. Ricci failed to do that. And I would suggest that this, especially with the media scrutiny, I would imagine we'll probably see a news blurb come down the pipe here pretty quickly that he's had his permit reinstated. That's what I would expect.
Well, of course, that's not going to make the big news.
No, of course it won't.
You know.
Hopefully we hear about it. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know. It's pure speculation. But I'm assuming what happened here is he pissed off the wrong cop. He probably overreacted, lost his temper when he shouldn't have, yelled at the wrong person. And the cop said, okay, I've got some power to wield and I'm going to wield it. That's my read.
You know, that's that interesting thing in California. They have that blurb in there that your CCW can be revoked if you don't assist in the investigation. Yeah. Now, of course, you have the right to invoke silence, right?
Correct.
You have an absolute right. And it would seem to me that shouldn't impose on your right.
It shouldn't, but then there's a lot of states that say that a CCW permit is not a right, it's a privilege. They're separating from the Second Amendment. They're saying that this is a state-certified permit. Doesn't mean you lose your right to have a gun, but you lose your right to carry it publicly under our scheme because that's issued as a faction of law, not as a faction of a resigned right that you have in the Second Amendment.
So if you ask John Correa why he hates CCW permits, I live in a state that has constitutional carry.
Yeah.
We were, in fact, the first modern state to adopt constitutional carry in 2010 in Arizona, and it's gone swimmingly. It's delightful.
It has. There are advantages that you don't get if you don't have a permit.
I
Some
have
of those
one.
advantages are important to me.
Yeah.
Also, and I always tell people this, as a former judge and as a current attorney, not having a permit allows you to be cross-examined during a self-defense case in a way that you don't want to be cross-examined. If you have a permit, you can shut down a certain line of questioning that you can't shut down without a permit. Yes, I did care enough about this to go out and spend my own time and my own money to learn about the laws of this state and to demonstrate my proficiency and to take a written exam about those laws. And I'm not embarrassed to tell you about it. And yes, it was a wonderful experience and I learned a lot. That just shuts down a whole lot of, you just decided to grab a gun and go out and carry it in the 5th largest city in the country and just Katie barred the door, didn't you, sir?
I still hate the government idea that...
I do too. We're both libertarians.
Yeah.
And that makes me a hypocrite.
I'm going to take away your right and lease it back to you
I've had so many students that I've encountered that simply should not have a gun. They're not wired for it. They don't understand. See, I would not trust them with a car. I would not trust them with a chainsaw. And I don't trust them with a gun. And I'm comfortable saying you shouldn't have a gun. But if a politician says that, I loathe that.
Now we got a problem.
And that makes me a hypocrite. So that's the problem with my libertarianism. I think that there's some hypocrisy that I can't get around with that. But I feel strongly on both sides.
That's no different than there's plenty of people in this world who I say, you should not have children. You should not procreate.
Maybe even more than guns.
Yeah, I mean, way more than guns. You should not procreate.
Amen.
But God forbid if the government came and said you cannot procreate,
That's right. You're right.
I would freak out.
Yeah.
I would lose my marbles.
That's right.
If the government said you couldn't do that. Yeah. And so, okay, when the state leases it back to you, don't even get me started on driver's licenses. Don't get me started. And don't get me started on reciprocity. So in that case, they go, oh, okay, but that doesn't mean that you can carry because then it's the people's right to limit that. But
Bruin says that's not true, and I think that we're
going to see that.
I think we're going to see that. I think you and I have talked before about the world, post Roe versus Wade.
Yeah.
And without getting into the discussion about how you feel about abortion, that's not the issue. But there was a lot of states, a lot of southern tier states that resisted following Roe versus Wade for many years after 1973.
Sure.
And it was probably in the 80s before it was okay to get an abortion in Mississippi.
Yeah.
Whether you agree with that or not, the law of the land then was it's legal. And there was still a decade worth of cases that had to bop back up to the Supreme Court where Alabama had to be told, damn it, we really mean this, and here's what's going to happen if you don't follow law. I think we're seeing that right now with
Same in Bruin.
We're seeing that with Bruin. We're seeing it in California and New York and Maryland. I mean, it's gonna take some years of some states getting smacked with sanctions by courts.
Hawaii's getting beat down. New Jersey's getting beat down.
But we're seeing that. And unless Bruin's overturned, that's what's going to happen. And we won't have to worry about reciprocity because we'll have nationwide carrier laws because that's where we're going. And it's where we should be going.
Just going to take a decade.
Yeah,
That's all there is
sadly,
to that.
yeah.
So, I mean, I think the lessons here, I do wonder about this though, Tim, because wait a minute, my CCW requires that I cooperate in the investigation, but we normally give advice to people that says, shut up.
Now again, cooperating with an investigation would certainly mean not thwarting the investigation, not lying, not harming the investigation. But you're right, there's an inherent tension with helping the investigation and me giving away my rights under the Fifth Amendment. So and of course, if that comes push down to shove, the Fifth Amendment's going to trump.
Yeah.
But do you really want to? I mean, you're right. It's a mess. It's an absolute mess. And gosh, shockaroo, California is not getting it quite right yet. But maybe they will if we smack them a couple times. Maybe they will.
I think my disappointment is that generally speaking, I would expect an elected county sheriff to be a constitutionalist. I would expect a
You're
county.
such a sweet kid, Johnny.
I know, right? I'm a sweet summer child, I guess. I mean,
It's California after all.
as
So
a general rule, though,
not everybody's Judge Benitez in California. We wish they were.
I know. I guess I'm just saying that as a general rule, all over our country, it's those county sheriffs that
They swore to uphold the Constitution.
Yeah, that's their oath of office.
That's supposed to mean something.
And it generally does. And I get it. It's LA, so it's not really America. So
Our own Attorney General in Arizona, who swore to defend the Constitution, has flat out said that she will not enforce laws that she doesn't agree with. How can you reconcile those two positions?
that seems counterproductive.
Yeah.
Anyways, so listen, I think that in some sense, I hope Mr. Ricci gets his CCW back quickly because he needs it. Obviously, we see that he needs it.
And, this could have been a gang. There could be reprisals. I mean, Lance, what was Lance's name?
Lance Thomas?
Lance Thomas. I mean, this might not be the first time something like this happens. He needs to be armed for sure,
Yeah. Number two, this is why constitutional carry is valuable. Over half the country is constitutional
28
carry.
states now, I believe.
28 states, as it currently is. We live in one of them here in the great state of Arizona. Best gun laws in America. Arizona, not Texas, Arizona by a mile. I think that their value in that is that I tell folks all the time here, if you're 21 years old and you're legal to possess it, you're legal to carry it concealed on your person. And yes, that includes here. If you want to conceal carry an AR-15, I mean, I think you're dumb, but knock yourself out.
You're going to have to dress odd, but yeah.
You're
I
gonna
always
look
tell
weird.
people in Arizona with open carry, you can sling your AR-15 and go to the supermarket. It's legal. Make sure you got a bunch of money to hire an attorney before you do that.
You're going to get some.
Yeah.
You're going to get some visitations from the local
Lots of
constabulary.
pushback, yeah.
But you can do that. I think that having a CCW permit is hogwash, frankly. And yet I have one because it allows me to do things like when I travel out of state and gives me reciprocity.
Or going to parks or going to restaurants that serve alcohol. There's things you can do that the permit allows you to do you can't legally do otherwise.
When I go buy a gun, I don't have to go through a NICS check because I've already been NICS checked here in the state, blah, blah, blah. All that stuff. So listen, I hope Mr. Ricci gets his permit back quickly. I think it's a good reminder to all of us, though, if you do live in a permit required state, you better look at the requirements of your permit and what can get your permit yanked. I do think, I'm gonna be honest, if I was his attorney or if I was consulting with him, I don't know him, I've never met him, I've never heard from him, but if I was, I would have said, hey, maybe you should have your attorney reach out to the sheriff before you reach out to the news.
Yeah, that's a big, I have clients that want to do jailhouse interviews and stuff, and boy, it never, ever helps. And everybody now wants their Andy Warhol 15 minutes, and everybody thinks they want to be famous on the internet, blah, blah, blah. No, not here, not this way, shut up. Yeah.
And I really actually prefer like the Eli Dickens approach. You know, when young Eli was a hero, stopped an active killer, and then just ducked and ran. No interviews whatsoever.
And I respect that so much.
I respect the heck out of that. I think that's probably the wisest idea. And so I'm not saying that he's a terrible human, Mr. Ricci is for giving interviews. Hey man, it's a free country. You can talk to whoever you want to. I think you didn't make any friends in the sheriff's office doing
and we'd
that.
all be angry. I mean, I was the victim here. These people could have come in and raped and murdered my entire family. And I stopped that from happening, and now you're disciplining me? I mean, it's righteous anger. I get that.
I do too.
But how many times do we all have to swallow our righteous anger in order to, because we have the greater good in mind? And I think that's, if his attorney had reached out and said, hey, about this whole CCW thing, do you think we can square this away without the media getting involved? And blah, I agree. I think that would have been the smart move for sure.
That's a great thing when you go, hey man, he's frustrated. He wants his permit back. He's scared. And listen, what's going on with that? And if whoever from the sheriff's office goes, hey, he has to participate in the investigation, or this is an administrative process, we'll get it back to him within 6 weeks. Can we push that along a little bit?
Yeah. Anything we can do to grease the skids here?
Can we grease the skids?
I'm worried about this guy, and I don't think you want the publicity if they do break into his house and he's unarmed. My understanding was that was his only gun, right?
Yeah.
His gun's been seized and he's lost his permit. I mean, that's a pretty dicey situation. You guys probably don't want that on your head. I know I don't want it on my head. I mean, is there something we can do to work together here to get the glove to fit on the hand a little bit? So, I don't know.
And that's why you pay these folks. and I really do think, and I get it, you know, he's been on several Gunternet, GunTuber channels giving them interviews, and that's a discussion that I think pushes things in a positive direction overall in the state. But I wonder what that's going to cost him personally.
Yeah.
So generally, if that ever happens to you, my advice to you is don't be that guy because the cost to yourself is too high.
Yeah.
So I'm glad he lived. I'm
Yeah,
glad
thank goodness he was armed, because
Thank God
if he
he was
hadn't have been, God knows this could have been another one of those stories.
Yeah. So thank God for all of that stuff.
One last thing, situational awareness.
Yeah.
When I watched the video, I mean, he gets out of his car. I had to watch it the second time to make sure he wasn't on his phone. I was afraid he was on his phone. He wasn't on his phone. But he's looking for his keys. He's having a hard time finding his keys. He's carrying a soda or a coffee. If it was a coffee, I wish it had gone into the guy's face. That would have helped too. That would have started things off better. But he's juggling, trying to get his keys out, and he's got his coffee. Folks, if your own home, your own office, if you're going into the Circle K, have your keys in your hand when you approach your vehicle. It means you can get into your vehicle much quicker without any impediments. It also sends a message to people watching you that you're dialed into your environment, you know what's going on. So I just would say I wish he'd checked his 6 and had his keys ready to go, and this could have gone even better for him, I think. So anyway,
I agree.
But he's alive, God bless him, and I hope it works out.
So permit systems suck.
Only thing that's worse is not having them, in my opinion. So,
Well, only thing that's worse is having no right to carry.
Correct.
And so
hopefully all these things that your permit allows you to do, if you have a permit, you'll be allowed to do when we get rid of permits, hopefully in the next few years in the wake of Bruin. Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. In which case, bye-bye permits. I agree.
And again, we'll talk about this maybe in another video, but my marriage license is good in every state in the union.
Yeah, how about driver's license?
My driver's license is good in
I
every
can
state
rent a car
in the union.
anywhere. I can rent a car in Hawaii, no problem.
Why is my concealed carry license not?
We just had a Fifth Circuit court case. A district court said a guy, I believe he was arrested, he was traveling with a CCW that he had a permit for in Virginia into Maryland, and he was arrested in Maryland. And a judge has overthrown that arrest and said that it makes no sense that it should be legal in Virginia but not legal in Maryland. And I'm like, you think? So yeah, if that wave will start breaking a little bit, yeah, we'll get there.
So little progress, and I think that, again, legal CCW in California that was very rare a couple years ago is now much less rare. And so we're making progress. Don't be another test case, y'all.
Yeah, that's true.
Do things as well as you can. Tim, thanks for the info, man.
Always, man. Thank you.